Good afternoon. We are back. Second trip down here. It seems like the Jeep has some issues, and I'm not going to lie to you guys and say I haven't diagnosed it already, but I'm going to bring you along here so you guys can see what I followed up with. So, Jeep, they've already made the wiring repairs. We're just going to pop that key on for a moment here. And the shop owner was kind enough there to take my advice. And, oh boy, the lighting's going to be terrible here, but has actually already repaired that up there. And I don't know if you guys can see the hose up yonder, but he actually sat there and split the hose, made it so that way it can't rub up against anything anymore, and also fixed up the loom a little bit and pulled it away so that way it can't get damaged. So, smart move there. That's fine, no longer blowing an ASD fuse, but we do have an issue that comes up, and I'll bring you guys over to here. He's got his scan tool out on here already. We're just going to pull codes, and this is what he's dealing with. All 4 O2 sensor codes are coming up there, heater circuit low. That is a code. That does not mean that there is an O2 sensor problem specifically, in other words that it needs an O2 sensor, and it doesn't always mean that it's really a circuit low, and you guys are about to see that. So very quickly there, O2 sensors, pretty basic, right? So I got a wiring diagram out here. I figure I'll share it with you this way. So, and it paused on me again. Seems as though I have a finger that likes to pause the camera, so I apologize. So here is our diagram. What we have there, let's looking at the upstream sensors. We have here our signal wire that actually sends out. This is our signal wire that's going to be monitored by the computer. Our brown and dark green is going to be, it says O2 return upstream. That's actually going to be the sensor ground. That's our signal ground. We have here our O2 sensor heater control, and then the share ground at G105. Right, so our two upstreams have a shared ground at G105. It makes it a little bit easier there that we can check this. Just to show you, the downstream is pretty much the exact same setup, exact same ground is being used here. And of course, you know, this is not a New York vehicle, so we're not rotting away. So ground might not be the first thing that we go for, unlike what we did when we were back up in New York. Again, though, we have a signal wire that comes all the way down. Signal wire goes down through the sensor, and then this becomes the sensor ground. The sensor ground comes all the way around, back up here to the PCM. So PCM supplies the sensor ground, and it also supplies a power switch for the O2 heater control that then is constantly at ground to keep this heater element nice and hot, keep the O2 sensor reading properly. If there's ever a time that you guys want me to go through a wiring diagram class, let me know and I'll be happy to do that. But going in here with what we know so far, we're just going to go out, and again, I've already diagnosed this. So, in looking at this, if I come back out here and go under data display and see what data they give us. Always customize your data list so we're not looking at 500 things. Deselect everything. And let's go with the upstreams. We'll start with the upstreams. We'll look at the O2 sensor voltage and then the heater duty cycle. Pop it up on list view. And this is what we have. So hopefully that glare is not too much. I'll try to curb it off if I can. There we are. So we got 5 volts basically sitting here up on the 2 sensor signals. Thanks, Jay. So shop owner's over here right now giving me, casting some shade, so that's appreciative. So here we are though, our heater duty cycles are off at the moment, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fire this thing up and let's see what we actually get now. So what we should have is if the O2 heaters are working, our sensor signals should start to drop from about 2.5 volts, which is their pretty much a bias that they run, down to a standard 0 to 1 switch. That's typical for most of these Jeeps and most of the older Jeeps and even some of the newer ones that are out there. So let me fire this thing up. Stick shift. Ivan would be happy. And we come back out over here and I'll pop these open to graph. And so what we should see is a steady decline, similar to what we're seeing here right now on these O2 sensors until they get down there to past the 2.5 volt point, and then switching down to about 0 to 1. Should take nearly no time at all. I'll rev it up a little bit just to help things along. And we're down to about 2.6. The moment I let off though, you take notice, this one here actually came back up right away. That shouldn't be happening. It should continue to drop as time goes on. So as of right now, I'll let you guys know again, I've already diagnosed it. So I am back probed right now on the sensor signal wire, sensor ground wire. That sensor ground should be a ground at all times. Right now I have a test light that's hooked up over there to battery positive. If I come down here and I actually touch against my back probe, I should have a test light that lights, which we don't. We do not have a sensor ground on this. Now, if I look over here, when I do this, you'll notice it goes right back up to 5 volts, right? Because I'm affecting the ground. If I had a good ground, or even pretty much any ground at this point, when I touch this, it shouldn't make any change whatsoever. In this case, though, it does. So, if I take this and switch it over to our ground, taking our test light the other way around, and I touch our pin back here. Now, if you look at the O2 sensor voltages, I'm not pulling the signal down. What I'm doing is I'm giving it a chance to actually start reading and start doing what it's supposed to do. Jay, would you mind just sitting there and giving it some throttle? Just a quick snap throttle. Give it a little snap. Perfect, thank you. And so as you see that there, reactivity of it is there and there. Notice that it affects both upstream O2 sensors. This computer, unfortunately, and remember, let's go back through what was originally wrong with this vehicle. We had wiring over here that was arcing, going up against an engine ground. We had a 20 amp maxi fuse that was doing this. Sometimes current likes to take an easy path. Well, if you take a quick look right here, where I'm hooked up over here for this battery ground, this, as you can see over here, when I first got to this vehicle, one of the things I didn't put on video was that this one here was a little bit more corroded and a little bit loose. I tightened that up the last time I was here, not thinking about anything really. It was just one of those things you do. But that is the reminder to me though that when this happened and ground was poor coming down from here, going down to the engine, what was happening is we were arcing and it was trying to find another path to ground. That other path to ground, unfortunately, happened to be here through the PCM. The other steps that I did here, and I'm not going to go through it all right now, but just to go quickly with you, I verified powers and grounds here at this PCM. Remember that if the PCM has to send out a ground, it has to have a good ground into it, right? Garbage in, garbage out. But unfortunately, our PCM here is incapable of doing the sensor ground. So the question is, why does it set a heater circuit low? Well, the answer is, if you look at what that does, if the ground is no good for the signal and the signal itself never goes low and it sits there at its bias voltage, it assumes that the heater is not working. It doesn't have any way to really check that. It doesn't have an amp meter built in there to watch the heater circuit. Instead, what it does is it looks at the voltage that's out here and says, hey, this thing is not coming to life. It's not getting down to the voltage that it should be to actually be working. So figured I'd just run you guys through that though, just so you know, because you could get twisted on this one here with the heater circuit. The heater circuit itself, by the way, does light a light bulb. Did all that already. Ran a little bulb out there along my 30-foot leads just to make sure that everything was good. And again, this was like, you know, pretty simple diagnosis there. The thing that'll throw you off is if you're looking at it and you're looking at it as a heater circuit code, you know, understand that sometimes they're using the signal to determine whether or not the heater is working. Hope you guys enjoy that, and talk to you all soon.